grave report has come from the lands around Jerusalem that a race absolutely alien to God has invaded the land of the Christians. They have either razed the churches of God to the ground or enslaved them to their own rites. They cut open the navels of those whom they choose to torment, drag them around and flog them before killing them as they lay on the ground with all their entrails out. What can I say of the appalling violation of women? On whom does the task lie of avenging this, if not on you? Take the road to the Holy Sepulchre. Rescue that land and rule over it yourselves. For that land, as Scripture says, floweth with milk and honey. Take this road for the remission of your sins, assured of the unfading glory of the kingdom of heaven. After Pope Urban did his little speech at the Council of Clermont in 1095, the audience in turn was like, we need to go murder people! It can be, and the reason it can be seen very aptly in the language used by Pope Urban, because if you couldn't tell, this was talking about Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
And
seems like it.
And though there had been like interaction with Christians and Muslims, it wasn't bound by faith. They just thought they were pagans. At first, the Christians,
as one does in 1095.
But I want to talk about how the First Crusade acted as a jumping off point for not only let's say European chicanery, but the formation of what we would call Europe, whatever the hell that means. So, to understand this, I want to look at Pope Urban II. He's a little man. He was a nobleman, and he's French.
And just to refresh us, what constitutes a nobleman during this time period?
Those who have accrued, who generationally have accrued tracts of land from aristocratic birth. So you can't. So you're not moving up in this world.
Yeah, you've been up there.
And to move further up, you kind of have to spread some lies. As that's what Pope Urban II did, because in order to gain more legitimacy within the Catholic Church, he used highly inflammatory imagery to provoke an outrage of sorts that we may or may not see today. So, while there was occasional maltreatment of Christians, it was nothing as described by Pope Urban.
Yeah, what was the contradiction that he was trying to identify here?
That Christians in the Holy Land are being persecuted by the evil barbarous Muslims, and who are actually pagans and heretics, and we have to take back the Holy Land because
aren't these coming from people who usually didn't come from the Holy Land to begin with?
Yeah, they're from France.
Exactly.
They have. Well, this goes into like a conversation of like relics, because Christianity, because a relic, since Jesus doesn't have like, he has no remains. They saw the Holy Sepulchre, which is the land, which is the site of Jesus' execution, entombment, and resurrection.
Okay.
Basically, just where he lived and died, and came back. Palestine.
Sees that as the holy site of their religion.
That they must, in turn, reclaim.
Take back, even though they...
Yeah, this is religious. This is sort of a religious colonization, because
I was about to say, it sounds like a justification for something else.
Yes, because while there had been holy war, this Pope Urban's speech really kicked off. Let's say more worldly ambitions backed with
A
ideological
lot more of a
claims.
political movement than it is a religious movement.
Yeah,
just with the
because he
justification.
was built at the same time. He was also building up his own power in the Catholic Church.
You see where that goes later on.
Ooh boy, ooh boy.
Well, this shows a lot about the tactics that ruling class and elites use in order to get the masses to back them.
Yeah,
This
because
is a
in
great
order to like
example.
get these a bunch of knights to, because he knows how to get people of noble birth to give a shit.
Yeah,
Since
riled up.
he grew up in them, and so he knew the affairs.
He
And
knows their interests.
he knows their interests, and so he added just war principles to make crusading as an act of taking a vow and pilgrimage
It was a godly effort.
in order to, because they Christianity, there was no united Christian, there's no Christendom for it. Well, Christendom, whatever that is, there is no Christendom for this, because Christians they were fighting with amongst another for quite a
Which
while.
sounds like a lot of Europe to be.
Yeah, because they were also like some Spanish and French lords were also allying with Muslims in Europe as well before
also
this.
gain power.
Yeah, because this is just politics.
Yeah, exactly.
At Clermont, however, Urban urged the knights of France to cease their private wars and to begin a battle worthy of their noble status. To fight for God was to take service with the ultimate Lord, and to win forgiveness for their wicked lives was a prize immeasurably greater than any earthly riches could offer.
That is such a persuasion right there for religious noblemen.
Though this was like to get like religious colonization in effort, not many crusaders stayed in the East, but they did plunder it, cause
It doesn't sound like they wanted that land, huh?
they only wanted
What was in it?
what was in it.
Exactly.
They only want some riches and plundering, and the acquisition of wealth was hand in hand.
We don't connect these things in the development of Europe. We just say that crusades happened because people are crazy. But this shows a lot more than just people being crazy.
Because he was also implementing ties with the Western Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox, they had long split in 1050 at this point. But in 1095, Emperor Alexis of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire, he was asking for aid against invasions from Muslims of Asia Minor, and so with politics being politics, Pope Urban was like, "I'm your father.
Yeah.
You're
I'm
my
your daddy.
son, and I will help you.
And what this is-
but, gotta let us go. And we will help you. You just got to admit that we can help you.
Yeah.
And actually, we're better than you.
Let us spin it a certain way. Makes you look like a victim to the Muslim masses. Interesting.
Interesting. Very interesting. Though the crusade was also this was started as like a means to get to build power within like Western Europe. It also had a side effect of anti-Semitism, as most things do.
Interesting.
Because
Furthering diaspora.
Because as you could imagine, the alienating imagery used by Pope Urban also influenced preachers like Folkmar, who would advocate for pogroms.
Interesting.
As a Hebrew source wrote, the princes and nobles and common folks in France took counsel and set plans to rise up like eagles into battle and to clear the way for journey into Jerusalem, the holy city, and for reaching the sepulchre of the crucified, a trampled corpse who cannot profit, who cannot save, for he is worthless. They said to one another, "Behold, we travel to a distant land to do battle with the kings of that land. We take our souls in our hands in order to kill and to subjugate all those kingdoms which do not believe in the crucified. How much more so should we kill and subjugate the Jews who killed and crucified him?"
There's multiple enemies here. You know, there's a lot going on here.
It sounds like everyone is
It's
the
not
enemy.
just the anti-Christian Muslims. It's the Christ-killing Jews.
Everyone who does not accept God, Jesus, or what
the Christian God,
what Christianity believes in.
Whatever the hell that is.
Whatever the hell that
is.
is.
Into Western Europe, Christianity, which Jews and Muslim is more of a Middle Eastern thing. It seems to be a political effort to separate certain people.
Pretty much.
But it can't be that, can it?
No.
It can't be.
No.
It can't be. It's a holy war.
Also, giving context to how the Crusade was able to transpire, wars had been occurring in religious and wars alike had been occurring in Asia Minor for a while, and all the powerful lordships had basically been either killed or dissolved, and only small lordships remained, and this allowed not only Seljuk Turks to have more influence, but that's a later story, but also how the Crusaders could just go through without much resistance.
Makes sense.
On their way, because we can't not talk about this. They sieged Antioch. They had a fierce battle outside of Jerusalem, and compounded by their uncompromising religious fervor. This contributed to the Crusaders unleashing savagery and slaughter on an appalling scale. When they had liberated the holy city,
quote unquote,
what did they do?
Liberated, apparently.
Well, in their liberation, they were like, "We need to purge all the unbelievers."
No.
Some of the pagans were mercifully beheaded. Others, pierced by arrows, plunged from towers, and yet others, tortured for a long time, were burned to death in searing flames. Piles of heads, hands, and feet lay in the houses, streets, and indeed there was a running to and fro of men and knights over the corpses. A group of Muslims on the roof of the Temple of Solomon surrendered, only to be killed soon afterward. Women and children were not spared in this brutal orgy of destruction. The Crusaders seized infants by their soles of the feet from their mothers' laps or their cradles and dashed them against the walls or broke their necks. They were slaughtering some with weapons, others with stones. They were sparing absolutely no Gentile of any place or kind.
The orgy of destruction.
In Pope Urban's inflammatory rhetoric, they created what they projected.
Mm-hmm.
They became
the monsters.
Yeah.
Like,
that's not
like what the hell?
That is a constant throughout history, over and over and over, over and over and over.
Especially if you believe in class and how that will inevitably lead to interests forming.
Look at throughout the 20th century. Look at the 21st century so far. Most wars are fought through an in and out group, whether religious, race, ideology, type of state. This is just a great stepping stone to kind of read that history through. Also, that sounds like beautiful Christian love to me.
Yes, this is love.
Mm-hmm.
It's love when you murder a baby.
This is saving people. Yeah.
Believe or else.
and we go through these history lessons in like 4th or 5th grade when you just don't get it.
Yeah.
And you go, that's horrible, and you just kind of think about it, just things that happen. There's no connection to anything else. And if you're sitting there as a Muslim person or a Jewish person reading this, it says a lot as a kid about your history and how it's skipped over and ignored.
And how you have no power, no agency. You're nothing,
It's
actually.
the same system as it was in the 11th century.
Yes, but just cruel.
Mm-hmm.
Their growing military cohesion and the divisions within the Muslim world both contributed to the Christian victory, but piety was their ultimate motive. It is one of history's ironies, however, that Pope Urban did not live to learn of the Crusade's success. He died in July 1099. The man who started it all died before he could even learn of its success.
That's God's plan, I guess.
How do you call that?
What are you about to say?
I was just gonna say, going off of what Carson just said, with all of this being skipped over, in high school, I was in the classes that were supposed to be in-depth looks at European history, dating all the way back to this period of time, like the 1050s onward. And for the life of me, I cannot remember a single thing that you have just talked about ever being spoken by my teachers or my early college professors. And I think that it's because it's just so jam-packed with history and details, and it's just assumed that because this was so long ago, because it was so long ago, that those details don't matter.
Things have to be different now, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
no way.
It's not like Pope Urban's shadow still haunts us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Or
his
like the
hatred,
Catholic Church is the reason for so much death and destruction
No.
or,
from that
you know,
point onward.
There's still current rhetoric in France, in Europe, in Britain, in Western Europe of Muslim masses taking over and raping, despite Europe doing just that multiple times.
Despite Europe doing it 10 times more.
Yeah, at least, and most of it being
The
made
world
up in their
over.
minds. I mean, what I do remember in school in history is a lot of justification and double speak about these events in a way to say that this was the best way possible, or this was God's plan, like this was progress. Now, things aren't always pretty in history, but what else are you going to do about it? But they never have this idea that unless it's a Muslim or an Eastern person, that's when their actions become evil. When it's a Western European, their actions were justified and led to our creation as a country and our state.
And purposefully, the unsavory details, like the ones you've just described, are left out because the unsavory details are the most telling.
That's the most humanizing, because you read that and that can happen to anyone. It's just the fact of who it happened to and who did it is what's important. That gets skipped over.
And there's so many more I guess contemporary quote unquote examples of genocide and just a massacre of people, and just like the desire to eliminate their existence.
If this was the 11th century, imagine what happened leading up to that.
Yeah.
You know?
And all these contemporary examples, we hear so much about them, and we hear everyone saying like, "Oh, that was terrible. That can't happen again." But truth be told, that was the 1500th time that something like that had happened.
It was just the next time. It was even faster, easier, and sharper, more efficient.
Yeah.
Hidden, more justified. They got better and better with it each time,
And it's interesting to think of how war tactics and technology and weaponry have changed since then.
All to create the same result.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. So they like mostly just bashed the babies against the walls and
I mean, that's what Christopher did to,
set shit on fire.
to those Taino people. So
Pillaged and raped and yep.
That's lit. That's history.
It's
I love
just
Euro
full.
lit.
full of disposable people. Disposable people and disposable villages. It's jam-packed with it.
If you want to learn more, I highly suggest reading the book where I got this information from, Holy Warriors by John Phillips.
Ooh, interesting.
And you should also look at Robert of Rhymes' account of Pope Urban's speech, because it specifically goes into Pope Urban's specific connections to France. I would say
But
that.
that wasn't nearly as public as the hate speech and the genocidal rhetoric, was it? Very interesting that an action of God can be so politically convenient.
God is politic.
And politics is God, I guess.
Sorry, this is just how the world works, and you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
I guess I should go kill some brown people too, so I can claim back my holy land.
You know, if you want to listen more, I suggest somewhere else, because I have no fucking clue. Thank you!